All right, music fans, welcome back. It's just harmless me here talking about real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me, just kind of winging it here, talking about Journey's new song, The Way We Used to Be, and how it's not on any of the old folks radio stations, the blue haired geezer adult contemporary stations. It's not being played, folks, and it's not surprising. I hate to try to explain this again, but I'm gonna cite Don Henley, and I know some people don't like it when I do that, but I think Don Henley has a point when he talks about ageism. He talks about, he could record the best album ever with what's left of the Eagles, and it's a formidable group. I mean, you do have Vince Gill, which I'm not. I don't know. I'm very neutral about Vince Gill. I think at that point you want to call Don Felder for some guitar firepower, but they won't do that. But you still have Joe Walsh and Tim Schmidt, and you have Deacon Fry. And it would be kind of interesting to hear a Henley Deacon Fry duet composition, whatever. I'm not sure if Deacon writes songs. He doesn't necessarily have to. All those other guys are really good songwriters, and I think it would be interesting. But Henley says, look, we could record a great album. Nobody's going to care because at a certain point, it's about age and image. And these guys are too old and we can't have them on the radio anymore. It's Maroon 5 all day long. It's Ed Sheeran. It's whoever over on those charts. A lot of times you look at the names, I don't know who 60 or so. I mean, people will send me stuff and I'll go, I don't really know who that is. I don't know who that is. And look, I call it laziness on my part. Call it, the fact that I am in a certain lane. I tell people I talk about geezer rock bands and they kind of laugh at me and I go, well, that's what it is. I mean, there's no way around that definition at this point. But Journey, I think, sort of transcends some of this problem because they have this new lineup, they have this new energy. The song is muscular enough where in the old days that would be a rock radio song. I think in today's world, you probably put it on the adult contemporary station, even though it kind of rocks. But most of the stuff on AC radio is heavily programmed, meaning that there's all kinds of synthetic things happening inside the song that you're hearing on these stations, and there's no organic quality to it. And Journey's new song is old school. And old school now is defined as, say, using real instruments, even if you're not in the same room recording, which they weren't. You're mailing files out, emailing, transmitting the files, and then they go to one location, and then somebody throws it into a bowl and mixes it, and voila, you've got a new song. And it's not like the old days. Even Neil Sean says it would be far better if they were all in the same place trying to record, but they didn't have that luxury. Now, some people might say, well, if Steve Perry came back to Journey, yeah, you would think, right? If Steve Perry came back to Journey and they recorded a song, it might get some radio airplay. Case in point, when Steve Perry came out with Traces a few years ago, he did get some airplay on adult contemporary stations. It was a short-lived run. I think there were 2 songs from the album that charted. One of them, I think, went as high as any of his other adult contemporary songs from the Street Talk era, which I found to be interesting. A lot of that seemed to be on paper because I didn't hear these songs on radio stations at all. I'm sure there were a few stations in certain markets that I'm not in that gave it some airplay. But it is Steve Perry, and that was my point. It was Steve bleeping Perry. So if Steve Perry can't get radio airplay. And I had people in the industry say to me, well, the songs aren't all that great. And I'm like, I think they're good songs. I think the Steve Perry album, it isn't Journey, and a lot of people had to try to get over that. It's Steve Perry solo. We know what Steve Perry sounds like as a solo artist. But I think if you did combine, if you had Jonathan Cain, Neil Schon, and Steve Perry writing songs again, that would be breaking news. That would be, okay, here are, especially celebrating the Escape album right now, 40 years, right? 40 years when these guys got together the first time, there was energy and chemistry and creativity out the wazoo. So that would probably be the only thing to get this band maybe near the radio again, but maybe it's just over. I mean, I know Arnell had some airplay during the first album that he released with Journey, the Revelations album. He got some airplay. He had a ballad on there, and the name of the song is escaping me right now. But even Delilah, who is this corporate radio nighttime, I don't know, therapist. I don't know how you'd consider that show, but it's been on for years. And I remember she was playing the new Journey song on her show and telling people that it was a real great song and people are requesting it. I don't know if that will ever happen again. I mean, I get it. Time marches on. But the band is still relevant. They're still touring, obviously. They're going to sell out gigs left and right. They have the most downloaded song in history. So, yeah, the industry has changed, and it hasn't changed for the better. Like I say about other formats, when grunge came along, it should have been able to coexist with the other stuff. But what it did is it canceled out the other stuff, and then the other stuff never came back. And that's been the way it has been for 30 plus years. So do I think Journey would chart with Steve Perry? Maybe, but it might be over. And I guess I have to come to terms with it. And it's not like a thing that keeps me up at night, but it's just sad. These guys put a lot of effort into a song. It will reach an audience. It will reach a limited audience because of corporate media and what they deem to be acceptable for the rest of the listening public. And, again, my advice to Neil Schon and his crew would be to try to get your music into like a video game or a commercial or a movie or something where people will just do it on their own. They'll scout out the track and find it, or get some dude with a skateboard drinking like a, I don't know, Snapple or whatever, and have them sing along to The Way We Used to Be. I think that might get you 1 million TikTok views, and then who knows, you might have the number one song in the country a couple of weeks after that. But that's it. That's all I got. I don't know. It's a weird world we're living in, but this is the new frontier, and it appears that things aren't going to go back to the way they were.